Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the finals of the Canadian Regional Championship here in Montreal, brought to you by Face to Face Games. I'm Dom Harvey. I'm here with Mason Clark, and we are here to crown a champion at long last. Both of the players before you have just booked a seat in Worlds, so uh, whoever loses, they have some nice consolation prizes to go along with the smaller Raindrop Trophy that you see out there, a few thousand Canadian dollars, which have held their value compared to the US dollar, and a decent chunk of bragging rights too. But there's only one winner, Mason, and we're about to find out who that is.
Yes, there is, and I am very excited to see. We saw Linden battle in, right? Had a crazy match versus Rakdos Leyline in our last round of Swiss. One got in on 8th seed, has beaten Prowess twice now. Ray has been in a CFT, one of the most accomplished players in our field, one of the most known players in our field. Also, of note, Linden started shuffling up, getting ready. He's going to eat a granola bar really quick here to power up. So I'm going to give Linden a second. But yeah, Ray is sort of the person to beat in this top eight, right? It is this probably the strongest player, at least of the ones we super really know, and has been showing that prowess so far in our first two rounds as we have been following Ray, and we're about to see more action here.
Yeah, Linden's winning in against the Leyline deck. That's the kind of thing where once you win that match, you wonder if some higher power is looking down on you, right? And you're destined to just win the whole thing. That said, if we're going to bring plot armor into the conversation and narratives and so on, really hard to
Mm-hmm.
beat the narrative that Ray has constructed for themselves here. This international raiding party in a last-ditch attempt to get that Pro Tour Atlanta invite at the end of the year, but also, as they put it, just to play more with this deck. They really believe and enjoy this Parasec, and so this is in a way the ultimate vote of confidence in this strategy, which I guess is a lukewarm take, right? That the Prowess is a really really good deck, but Ray doing an excellent job of showing just why that is.
Yeah, and I mean, the deck, this is the last RC, I believe, right? Dom, I think, this was the last round of them here. And we've had a lot of narratives about Cutter, right? I think, when we first went to the European RC, it really was like, okay, a lot of people think it's maybe the best. It's definitely probably like a top five deck at worst. But is there something we're missing when players are gunning for it, when the Pro Tour is on the line? How do things change, right? Went in, did really well. It's like, okay, well, next round of RCs did really well. And people kept saying, oh, I don't want to play. Is it this time? It's getting gunned. I think it's beatable. And while it hasn't won every RC, it has been a dominant force in every RC, often making the finals.
Yes, and so far this weekend, Ray has lost two Isn't Mirrors. They've won several others, and they also beat everybody else, including three wins against Omniscience, including against Linden earlier in this tournament. So this is a rematch from 5 or 6 hours ago at this point. CFT won that, and they will be on the play in the finals, trying to make that two in a row.
Definitely, yeah. And it looks like Lyndon's taking a second to go use the bathroom before we get started. Did just have like an hour long match going on there. But we're taking a second to look at the deck list here from CFT. If you're just joining us now, is it prowess? What's some, innovative stuff going on here? A couple Thunder Trap trainers, only two Monstrous Rage in the main, one in the sideboard. A lot of little things here. Dom, it's looked impressive all weekend.
Yeah, it's the basic is it formula. It's nothing too radical, especially for CFT, who if anything radical is going to appear, is going to come from there. But uh, in one sense, that is an endorsement, right? Like
Mhm.
that's okay. The core of this deck is very strong. I have philosophical differences over the role of Monstrous Rage, or how important is Swift Bear, or Drake Hadger versus Slickshot, and everyone has a strong view on those things, right? So seeing where players come down individually is pretty interesting. But yeah, it's not a settled question. But the best way to make other people see your point of view is to win a large Magic tournament with it. So you might be seeing that in progress.
Yes. Speaking of winning large Magic tournaments, let's see if this Azurus Omniscience deck can pop up on our screen, as this is the other deck vying for this spot. And I think, in a lot of players' mind, this has sort of been 1B, right? Sort of, is it Cutter? Came out of the gates, was sort of, the de facto deck, but a lot of people had faith in Omniscience. It's done really well in lots of events, and it's in the finals here today.
Yeah, this is held up as one of the few other decks that can consistently hang in a is a cutter format. Just fast combo deck with 4 main deck lockdowns. That is a really nice recipe. The things get harder after sideboarding, but you have a lot of weird pivots and tactics to try and jump around that. And the hope is that as the Paris players and everyone else has to turn their attention to the mirror first and foremost, that means there's less stuff which it's not so good in the mirror, but might be good against the spell based combo deck.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of spice in this deck as well. Look at Stroke of Midnight, right? We've watched Linden a couple times. Stroke looked like it actually could have been game winning in one of the spots had we used it a little differently. And it's kind of this weird catch all card, but shows there's a little room maybe for innovation here with this Azorius Omniscience deck.
Yeah, I think people have mentioned this as a kind of weird win condition of sorts when you're looping your deck, or and it's just generic utility card to deal with post board certainly the ghost vacuums of the world, right? But in game one, just anything really that might be getting in your way.
Yep. Well, hopefully Linden is about ready to go because Dom, I don't know if I can wait any longer to get some magic. And there we are, drawing up our hand. Looks like Ray maybe mulliganed because we had shuffled our deck already. Not exactly sure. Linden will be on the draw. And this is one of the matchups, where it really matters play versus draw.
Yes, flippant to say it's somewhat true of just matchups in Magic as a game in formats, but definitely true of the specific one. So being the higher seed, and everyone's the higher seed than Linden, he snuck in on eighth, so was always going to be the underdog there on the draw. He's managed to break serve twice so far. We'll see if he can do it 3 times in a row.
Yeah. In the same matchup.
Yes. Yeah, he's beat 2 Izzet decks already to make it here, and this may be the most challenging in terms of a combination of player and build and so on. But yeah, he's risen to the occasion so far.
All right. We think this is a mulligan. We're not actually 100% sure.
And I think in this matchup, Ray is looking for a hand that does stuff, as broad as that sounds. So you don't just want to be kind of sitting around, casting some cantrips, generating some value here and there. You're going to get overwhelmed by Omniscience in the end. So you can try and dig for the 1 main deck spell pierce, but just interaction more broadly, or have one of those fast hands fueled by Swift Spear, Monstrous Rage, and so on.
Yeah. Of note, we didn't talk about this too much when looking at the deck list. A lot of Ray's changes, I think, actually hurt in this matchup. Only having 2 Monstrous Rage, no slick shots anywhere in the deck, having some trainers over a couple prowess threats. These are all things that kind of, they're small knocks against Azorius Omniscience, but you can't deny that, those cards don't always, like, for example, Monstrous Rage is one of the better cards you want to draw in this matchup.
Yeah, you would almost rather be on a stock aggro version from a few weeks ago or from elsewhere in the tournament in this matchup. I do like the 4 Floodmore strike. It just means that lockdown is so much less reliable as a delaying tactic. And simply doubling down on that a little bit in the sideboard, right? So this hand ain't big enough. Get out a lot of good sideboard cards there. So the post-board games I think are going to be quite interesting. But game one, more of a narrow race, which CFT is searching for the tools for, hasn't found them yet. Probably on 5 cards, if that's what this is. Has to just keep a hand that does stuff. We'll see how much stuff they can get up to.
Yeah, something like double prowess creature, 2 lands, and a cantrip. Take that at this point.
And honestly, we're 6 years into the London Mulligan now, almost. And I think it's still one of the hallmarks of a good deck is how well does it function under that Mulligan paradigm, right? If you're a deck that couldn't function with only a few lands or only a few resources generally, then you get to Mulligan more. And if you have to Mulligan more, you'll win. So that's still one of the kindest things you can say about a deck is that it mulligans well. And so this, okay, Ray's on 5, but this is a somewhat proactive start.
Yeah, double Storm Chaser's talent. We talked about the, kind of having. I said I take double prowess, double land, and a cantrip. Maybe Ray has that hand. But to what you're saying about the Linden Mulligan, I honestly, Dom, I'm of the opinion if your deck doesn't mulligan well, it just you're not allowed to play it anymore. It just, your deck needs to be really messed up. And if your deck's really messed up, then it should be able to probably mulligan. Thundering Fall is coming down. Surveil 1. And a pass of the turn back. Something like stock up, maybe Spell Pierce in hand for Ray. Here's Lockdown. And
Yeah.
oh my goodness, this is devastating, Dom.
So I think this is maybe not as bad as it seems, because Ray has 4 Floodmores, right? And so the plan is set up a turn where you bounce Floodmore in a turn, you get what 3 orders back, and then once you untap, not that hard to win from there. The scarier thing I think is tapping out for stock up. There's Omniscience already in the graveyard, right? Or is that a beautiful all done
That
meringue?
no, that's an Omniscience and a Meringue.
Okay, a little bit of both. So if Linden has 4 Brodos, that's it. That's game 1.
Yeah. And we have a Whales, we have the Plains. Does Ray have the Spell Pierce? And Linden's looking at it. I mean, it is one of those spots where I was gonna say you're really far ahead. You
Mm.
could, you can maybe wait,
A
right?
little scared,
Yeah,
maybe.
I was gonna say if I was gonna do it, I would just cast stock up instead. I think I get you have
Yeah,
Meringue, but
I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think the plan is to try and bait the Spell Pierce, right? Like,
Yeah,
and the best way to do that is to kind of do on your main phase and be like, okay, if I'm not playing the land, I should stock up, make it look like I need lands, try and get that there, and then I can maybe actually just play around Spell Pierce via making land drops.
yeah. So and with the scroll shift, yeah, Linden is not nearly as worried about some end of turn flood more into untap and kill you sequence. You know, the lockdown is
Yeah.
protected in a way.
Yeah. Also of note, we did this in response to the sleight of hand. So now that means Ray could find the Spell Pierce here. We do get the ETB of the Oracle. Is underneath there. Scroll shift. Superimpose on your screen there for a second. Just flickers a thing and you draw a card.
Hmm. And when it comes to playing around spell pierce, it is the softest of soft counters, right? So
Mhm.
Linden can just chill for a bit, get to 6 hands, cast a Brodos, and that's it. That will resolve one.
Yep. And we know there's, that's all that we have in the way in game 1. So, all right, now we're just casting it. Here comes Omniscience. Oh, we have another Abuelos in hand now. Ah, it's all coming together. We have a stock up. We have a Meringue. Looks like we're going to start things off. We have a Rolling Dragon Storm as well that we could play. Stock up. Going to cast into the Flood Mod to bounce Omniscience. Interesting. We're going to use Meringue now. We had another Abuelos in hand.
We have a second Omniscience in the graveyard yet?
No, we do not.
Okay, so it looks like, unless this Coil and Catch finds, Scroll Shift or Spell Pierce, something like that, the Omniscience may be successfully bounced,
Yeah.
but not for good, and then the stock up will resolve. So Linden will have a lot going on, can easily reassemble this threat, and on a multi-5 getting locked down, yeah, having used the flood more that you would want to bounce the lockdown, I think Ray is probably out of it.
Yeah. Now it looks like our stock up is going through here. We found another Meringue, found some lands, found an Opharas. A lot of options here for Linden. I think Linden can move to discard and discard the Omniscience. I think the hand's big enough. I don't know if you should, but you could. All right. Back to Ray. 2 cards in hand, passes back. Draws another Omniscience. If we had played the Surveillance last turn, we would have got there as well. That's funny. Abuelos on Omniscience. We're going to cast Spell Pierce. We found it. All right, Dom.
Okay, so Ray is still here. I won't say still in it just yet. That may be true, but definitely still here.
So we know there's an opt in hand because Ray started to show the wrong blue card. But they're keeping the other one close to the chest. Or in this case, the table. Dom, is it time for our big friend Meringue just to get hard cast?
Right, I think so, Mason.
I can't quite tell if it's in the hand or not, but it would be nice just to get a 6/7 on board, just start attacking.
You know how many towers you have to torch to kill that thing?
At least a dozen. Omniscience to the graveyard. We are 3 lands away from actually, just going off. It looks like we're going to use the hidden shuffle 4 cards back into the deck mode. Two Abuelos. Some other cards. Storm Chaser Talent comes on down. Mountain for turn. Gonna level this up and can pick up. All right, takes stock up.
Interesting.
Yeah, taking an aggressive stance. Thinks, if we get the Omniscience back, bouncing it probably isn't going to really get me anywhere, so I have to win the game.
I mean, I'd have thought the most direct route there is you get the Floodmore, end of turn bounce lockdown, free everything, and then just try and set up this miraculous chain on your own turn. But
well, that might mean there are 4 Floodmaws in the main and Ray's deck.
Yeah, I mean, if that hidden card is the Floodmore, then okay, we have a plan now. I wouldn't rely on this plan against 7 mana, handful of cards, and so on, but it's a plan.
Okay, starting with the stock up. Seven lands in play for Linden. Dangerously close to being able to cast this Omniscience. Storm Chaser's Talent. Make an Otter. Trigger Prowess. Attack for 3. A little blocking action. Draw discard time. Kotsul's Flanker was picked up. A little main deck 1-of fun of. Discard Cavern of Souls. Kotsul Flanker coming down. Passing the turn back. Drawing an island. Looks like we might be temporary lockdowning. This is a good way to sort of, comparing this to a Scroll Shift. Now, not all your eggs are in one basket. Kotsul gets in for 3. Didn't play land for turn. Held it. I guess if you just play Omniscience, you're not really getting anywhere anytime soon. Here's stock up. All right. Linden draws another temporary lockdown. Kotzel gets in. Corey Steelcutter comes in. All right, Dom, are we gonna get this game here? Monster Swift Spear, Trigger Flurry.
I want to believe.
Back for 3. Interesting. No Afaras. Thought we might see that as just, stem the bleeding a little, buy us some time. Temporary lockdown. Another one. That first lockdown has the most. The second has a middle amount, and the last one has a couple friends. All right, Kotzel Flanker can attack in again. We've seen it so far. It's been beating down.
Here's the thing. Would you attack with the Kuzzle Flanker? Because you could win by getting 5 hits in, but in some deranged sequence of Badger Lockdown, Untap, Stock Up, whatever, like having the actual blocker might actually be pivotal.
I think it might be, but I think Linden shouldn't have attacked. I mean, you can course correct, right? But I think Linden's going to be attacking because we started doing that. I think we sort of feel a bit behind here. I don't know. I don't even think that many Into the Flood mods have been used. I think there's only been one used this game. So, like, Ray has a couple ops. All right, well, you're an archaeologist. That's a good way to find some more interaction. Also have a chump blocker. Show me what we got. Abuelos was found. Okay. So we can Abuelos our Omniscience, cast Omniscience, and then we're safe from Flood Moth shenanigans in that regard, but I don't think we can actually do anything. Linden's Battlefield's a little big. Cast another Omniscience. All right, so we're Flood Moth proof in that regard, but as we all know, there's not much in hand, just a bunch of kill spells.
So I guess you could, as far as your Falaji, and then Falaji into the next thing, hopefully.
Oh, you could use the Midnight spell in hand too. You could kill your own lockdown because you have another lockdown. And then
So
that would.
one of the lockdowns at least has a Dragonstorm or other stuff underneath it, right?
Yes, correct. And so that would give you a bunch of relooks. Now it looks like we're just finding a Dragonstorm here. All right, there's a Meringue. So Meringue gives you some relooks too. This lets you do the thing we just talked about with lockdown, but not needing. All 3 of these are coming back to hand. Odsel's coming in. Gain a little life. Get a little scry action. There's another Meringue River region. Dom, I think we did it. It might have taken 20 minutes from what looked like was going to be a 3-minute wait. We did it as Rolling Dragonstorm comes down. Discard the Archaeologist, play this Meringue. Yeah, and that's all Ray needs to see. We're going to go to game 2 with Linden up 1 here over Is It Prowess?
Yeah, Linden 1 game away from the title, the trophy, bragging rights for BC. Gonna get a province right here. I'd say, look, I would make a joke about, BC needs help. Frankly, Ontario needs help. We have there was no danger of Ontario, running out the score in the top 8. We didn't have any people in the top. So, maybe next time, as we always tell ourselves.
Yeah, that will be the time. Well, Dom, it's hard, when you're over here in the booth, it makes it tougher. I'll tell you what isn't tougher though, the post-board games, because I think this is a spot where Ray doesn't have a ton for the matchup. We're going to start though looking at the Azorius Omniscience deck.
Yeah, so usual roster here of stuff like Beza. We have some extra removal. Voice of Victory is usually for the slower blue decks, but if you think your prowess opponent is boarding in a ton of disable strokes and so on, then maybe you try and get them that way. And yeah, we've seen most of this recipe before. Anything stand out to you?
No, no, we've seen it before. Nothing's really jumping out to me. Maybe after I see Ray's list, something will, pique my fancy. But for now, I think we're just, we came to game this weekend. We had a plan versus Is It. It's probably not going to change too much, despite Ray's deck being a bit different than the average bear. Speaking of which, we do have these 2 ghost vacuums. That's good. We got some counter magic. We got some bounce spells. But
It feels
pressure.
like somehow everyone congregated independently on 2 goes back, right? I think we saw one list earlier with 0, but you never see 1, you never see 3. It's always exactly 2. And sure enough, Ray has those as well. Negate, disable stroke, get out. This hand ain't big enough as a 5th bounce spell. The question mark to me is actually the rouse, because I privy to some of the prowess versus omni testing that various people did, and one of the things that came up was if you think these cyborg games slow down a lot, right? Omni's boarding in other interaction, other threats, random creatures. Is it has counter spells, ghost vacuums. It's pretty rare that Omni just gets to shove on turn 4 and
Mhm.
full combo early. So if it becomes a weird grindy game, Ral was actually surprisingly good in the weird grindy games.
Mhm. That
So
makes sense.
I could see that being part of the plan here, alongside all of the other blue stuff that we mentioned.
Yeah, maybe I undersold it a bit here. Maybe there's a lot more going on. I'm excited to see how CFT wants to play these games. Definitely not out. I think being on the play here is going to be always helpful, like we talked about before, but especially post board when you maybe have time to take a turn off to do something like Ghost Vacuum and sort of, maybe play a little slower and hold up a Spell Pierce. Excited to see what these players are going to do, as this could be the last game Ray plays of the day. Linden would be a fan of that. 14 rounds of Swiss, 2 previous rounds of top 8. These players have been battling Magic all weekend. With Ray, like we said, LCQing in.
Yeah, we haven't even been playing the games, and it's taking its toll on us. So I dread to think what it's like in the trenches there.
Yeah, they get the huge dopamine rush though, right? Like when you win and all that. So they've got that going, but then the crash out's real. We'll have to see how it goes. Is we're doing some big sideboarding here. Looks like Linden took out all the abuelos.
Now, hold up. Has his decklist sheet had some emergency surgery here?
I think so. I think we revitalized it.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, and
The wonders of modern medicine, Mason.
yeah. And Don, we've talked about, okay, maybe they're gonna go more controlling. We know how Linden feels, at least in this 75 configuration matchup. We took out 4 omniscience, 4 abuelos.
Okay, yeah. This was a matter of some debate from people I spoke to. Is
Mhm.
that they thought this plan was actually the most coherent one, the most likely to result in wins. But would anyone in the wild actually do this, right? Because
Mhm.
it's a bold step to transform your entire deck, not have the combo at all, and turn into some weird combo deck. Because until Chris Botello at the Harvard RC, people weren't playing dedicated blue eye control and winning with it,
Mhm.
let alone weird transformational blue eye control. So it seemed a tough idea in theory, but clearly a plan that's been working for Linden so far.
Okay, Linden's gonna cut a stock up and rebring in abuelos.
Warner Brothers?
1 abuelos. I mean, I'm looking at the cards right now. There's 3. There's 4 omnisciences.
Okay.
No, down a stock up abuelos.
Yeah, notably, Linden has 4 Overlord of the Mistmores. Like, you see the 2 copies, sometimes even a third if people are feeling greedy, but 4, at that point, that is your plan, right? That
Yeah.
is your pivot, and makes sense alongside the 2 scroll shifts, and so on. You form a Rang Rift Regent, right? The bases. So there's a lot of stuff that can end games. Boombringer Valkyrie we saw do good work
Mhm.
as well. So I wonder from Ray's side, right? You look at this list, you're trying to figure out what level is your opponent on. I like Sam cutting to this with the player of the day thing. Definitely the producer of the day. Um, so you look at the sideboard and you have to decide how to reconfigure your deck. if you can get on exactly the same level and then go one level above, that's ideal. I don't know how much risk is involved there, if that makes sense, because I think a lot of the cards Ray is bringing in, other than the Ghost Vacuums, which we'll come back to, you know, the blue interaction, good against a combo plan, also pretty good against lockdown plus big trunkers control deck. The exceptions maybe are the Ghost Vacuums, which basically don't do anything against Linden anymore, and the Rows, which hit or miss maybe against combo, but against blue eye control, fantastic. I mean, that's kind of why it's there.
Mhm.
So I wonder what level these two will meet each other on.
Yeah, I'm excited to see as we're starting up game number 2 of the finals here. One land for Linden. It's a surveyor land. The greed. It possesses him. It goes down to 6. Ray, gonna keep. Happy with the
Yeah, I
7 we
thought
got.
Ray was reaching towards their deck again, but just putting the hand down. So Ray gets to keep 7 this time. Linden will be sending it back. When we talk about decks that mulligan well, I would not describe Omni as a deck that mulligans especially well. Also, would not describe improvised blue eye control as a deck that mulligans.
Yeah, shoelace blue eye control is not exactly, going to be great at doing these sort of things. Especially, imagine cards like Stock Up are out of the deck, right? Those are some of the cards
Yeah,
that you get out of it.
that part is really curious to me because I mean, Stock Up is one of the best cards in blue eye control
Yeah.
for the people who play it. So if you're pivoting in that direction, taking out the card that ties that room together as well is surprising to me.
Twitch chat, Linden went 15 cards out.
15. Wow.
I think it was all of them. I mean, like he sideboarded out the 7 combo pieces because we had the Abuelas back, all the rollings, and then it seemed like all the oracles too. Maybe there was 1 or 2
Hmm.
left.
Okay.
I think it's I mean, maybe it's like 14 or something, but it was a lot of cards.
Yeah, depending on if this goes to a game 3 and how this game 2 goes, the players have to sideboard again. I wonder
Mhm,
if there are any telltale signs that this is what Linden is doing and
mhm,
how Ray responds to those. And then does Linden re-level for game 3 on the play and just say, okay, well,
mhm.
surprise, my combo's back in. Hope you brought your ghost vacuums back.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's almost like if Linden's going to lose this game, it's best to just get like, the best draw from Ray. You die on turn 4 and Ray
Right.
doesn't see anything. I mean, it's lockdown versus negate here. Some him and Han. Probably a pretty good sign that Linden has a lockdown in hand already.
A lot of spots where you really wish Philargy could take the land that's in the pile instead, but looks like Linden has at least a third land drop ready to go. Let's take the negate.
Attack for 1 was the spear. Block. Good block, says Ray. Here's Stock Up. Now, Dom, have you thought about having the deck of Prometheus for this event?
The what now?
So the idea, the ship of Prometheus, right, is the ship gets changed over time, and you put in new pieces of wood, and is it really the first ship of Prometheus? The idea is you have 2 copies of your Zurus Omniscience deck, the exact same 75. You just grab the one from your bag that's sideboarded for combo,
Now,
and then you know what I mean.
look,
That way you don't have to do
the ship of Theseus, I think you
the
mean.
ship. Of
Now,
yeah. Theseus,
Prometheus
excuse
might
me.
have his own yacht or kayak or something. I can't speak to that. I don't know the law, but
Excuse me, Theseus. Thank you, chat. I am Southern, Tennessee education system, not the best, nor was I the best. Put a lot of points into rectangular cards. We'll see how that goes long term. Negate, though, on this Corey Seal card looks to be great here. Linden paid off. We do get a prowess trigger, though. Pity point.
Mason
But
on
Dom, do you think you would do that? Like have 2 decks that way you can save some time sideboarding?
uh I think it's in my range.
I think it's in your range too, as we attack in here for 3 with Monastery Swift Spear. But chat's claiming I only know this from WandaVision. They're wrong.
Lockdown on the stack.
Yeah, I think we have a spell pierce. There's some interactive point. It could just be, into the Flood Maw, which you could use to bounce with the trigger on the stack while there's no other lands in play. Kind of guarantee that you get it off.
Yeah,
Yep.
and doing it this way means the Philargy doesn't get exiled and then come back and give Linden the trigger there. So makes sense
Yep.
to time it now.
Yep. And here's a fish. Do you have any cute fish tokens? Not just the great art fish token.
We'll try and confirm life totals here.
Mm-hmm.
Coordinate between us and you and the table spotter, so on and so forth. There we go. Linden is at 12. Raid begins with Thundercloud Trainer. Okay. Now that's also a good thing in a way to get stuck under a lockdown that's going to be bounced later.
Chat brings up a pretty interesting statistic, Dom. Sanctum has put 3 players into the finals of the RCs here. Chris in Hartford, CFT here, and Jennifer won Australia. CFT still could win here as well. Dominant performance, from a team that I think a lot of people, they kind of bursted on the scene and have just not really slowed down since, God, what was it? Late 2013, early 2024? Or
Yeah,
2023, excuse me, I misspoke.
They have a lot of people on it, so the odds are good. But a lot of those players are also very good too. So that's a nice combination.
That's really the best way to do the team, right? Good players, lots of them. As tacked in here, Linden, no fourth land. Does have temporary lockdown. All right, this time we're going under. Goodbye, Otter. Ray taking a think at the end of turn.
Is this a Floodmore moment, perhaps?
Yeah, the Thundertrap Trainer does change the calculus, right? You mentioned before. We want to do it before the trigger resolves, but now you get another card. Might also want to be holding a cantrip here, like Opt, in case you draw Core Seal Cutter.
Yeah.
All right.
Right, let's get that fish back. There we go. Okay, so
I get
Linden
so
will trigger
far.
Philargy, but Ray will trigger Thundertrap. And if Ray's trying to set up a big turn where Linden maybe doesn't get another turn, I think that symmetry definitely favors Ray.
Mhm.
And so now debating AppNap, whose trigger will resolve first and who gets to respond to that information. So this is Linden's turn. So Ray will get the Thundertrap trigger now.
While that's resolving, AppNap is active player, non-active player for those of you who have not had that cursed information put into your brain, and now you join us. Welcome. As Stock Up hits the hand. Whiff. Put that Overlord in the graveyard.
But that's a telltale sign, right? White Overlord, alongside. We've seen enough cyborg cards at this point that you can start to put some of the pieces together.
Yeah. I think the real question I'm starting to have is, if you're Linden and you're willing to do this, is it, because you think it's better overall? Are you pivoting because it's Ray? Or is it a play draw thing, where you feel like, oh, on the draw, I want to be, more controlling for whatever reason. And on the play, I'd rather, put Ray to the question, right? That's really what I'm thinking about as we're getting really close here to game number 3. Obviously, a lot of Magic left to be played, but this stock up helping really cement Ray's lead, as Linden has just not been able to do very much stuck on these 3 lands.
Yeah, there's Omni deck, only 23 land, and you mentioned Linden apparently boarding out the Dragon Storms, which I'm not gonna say a part of the mana base, but it is, if you have those cheap card draw effects, those often are what you need to kind of get the lands and get the spells you want to cast with those lands. And so if you're shaping on those, then yeah, stuff like this is gonna be a little more likely.
7 life for Linden. Draws for turn. I think no land here. We have a scroll shift as the pickup.
The funny thing about the will they, won't they transformation is you look at a card like Ghost Vacuum, right? Which
Mhm.
is maybe the most polarized in terms of good against a combo, bad against control. But if this is how the control deck looks, then in a long game, one mana spell triggers Paris. Okay, that's fine. And then going long, if it's threatening to hijack Overlord of the Mistmores, right, or other stuff,
Mhm.
that's not actually a terrible card in the end.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Looks like some communication here on where we at with everything. Into the Floodmon hand for Ray. All right, Overlord to the graveyard, past the turn. And Dom, we talked about the first Overlord being a sign. Second Overlord, maybe a moment of flashing lights.
Hmm. Health Elemental came in for as well, and now stock up going on the stack.
I think it's like the third turn in a row of stock up happening here. And that's pretty common with a card like stock up. You stock up into more stock ups or get closer to drawing the next one. Combat time. Even Thunder Trap Trainer coming in. End of the Floodmaw in hand. Fish in front of Hearth. Archaeologist in front of Swift Spear, currently taking 3 is Linden. Monstrous Rage would be lethal. Ray's like, okay, take 3. Linden's like, well, maybe I'll cast a spell. Yeah, Affaring the Otter. It's your only blue mana because you have these 2 Verges with no basic land type. Surveillance time. Found a land. Found maybe 2 lands. Fish is down. Linden takes 1, and it looks like Ray is passing the turn back. Island, the draw. Island, the play. Beza, the play. Do we have a Disdainful Stroke here? We have a Get Out. Pass the turn. Linden is tapped out. Ray has Into the Floodmaw in hand, and that is going to be lethal. We're going to go to game number 3, Dom.
Oh, so this is it. This is the last game of the tournament, unless something very strange happens.
uh, nothing strange is going to happen. We're going to have a good game of Magic here. That's what's going to happen. What is might be strange is what these players are going to do sideboarding. Don't cut to anything in production. I want to see what Linden does. Are we shuffling 15 in? Okay, we are. Now, you can cut to something if you want to. I was curious if we were going to actually shuffle or just going to hold it.
Yeah, I know people like to say, well, in theory, every single time, shuffle 15 in, take 15 out, which very few people actually do in practice.
Mhm.
However, if you're going to have a transformational sideboard that sometimes will bring in up to 15 cards, you got to be doing that just to balance the range.
So Dom, what I do to save time is I get it and I like shove it in, but almost all near the bottom. So most of it's kind of, like already clumped together and I just take it, you know what I mean? Like it's all right there. that's how I sort of do it. Be like, yeah, look, I did it, because I I don't have time for this. I got gray hairs now, Dom. I don't have time to go through this unless it's in this kind of situation where it is the finals. All right, it looks like Abuelos is getting cut again. Yeah, it seems like we're sticking to the control plan, Dom.
Okay.
Even Voice of Victory is in the deck. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it looks like. taking a look at this one, like I did register this for the RC. It's out. Rolling it out. Yeah, I mean, Dom, I think it was 15 cards for Linden.
Okay.
All right, Ray, though, I haven't been paying as much attention. There's 3 different piles. What are those piles? What do they mean? Only Ray
Some
knows.
shell game kind of situation developing.
Yeah. Yeah, Ray's like,
I think. No, go ahead.
no, I was going to make a stupid joke. Talk to me.
So I wonder if you are doing the control thing, I kind of think Dragonstorm is better for that than some of the marginal like Oracle of Tragedies and so on. Because I get that those can block and that matters a lot and you want to soak up damage, but in terms of not, Dragonstorm is just a fine card generically. There's a reason you don't see control decks with 8 oracles or whatever everywhere. Like those are not generically good cards in a strategy like this, and card disadvantage too. So if you're spending a card to just put some random body into play, I don't think that's as consistent with the plan as Dragonstorm is fine, and then sometimes you get to like do the meringue thing, the lockdown thing, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I agree. And you just have like, I don't know, you just don't want to flood out. You're gonna do the meringue like you're saying. Meanwhile, Linden, by the way, I was trying to watch as close as I can. I think we brought in 1 Abuelos, 1 Omniscience. There's an Abuelos in the deck. Saw that one. We cut a stock up again.
Keep people on their toes.
There's 1 Omniscience. I think we have the Miser's combo, Dom.
What if that just is how the game ends on turn 4?
I would laugh uncontrollably hard. I would need you to interview Linden. I could not stop laughing. And then I'd make myself a little sandwich while I chuckle. I think we got 2 stock ups. Wait. Linden, go to the back again. There's definitely 1 stock up cut. There's 2 stock ups out of the deck. I am puzzled, perplexed by I am turned into blue-white control, but I am down 2 stock ups. But it's in the final of the RC, and I'm at my house in this hoodie talking to you. So, who's really smarter?
Well, Mason, I main cast a tournament. I didn't even have to go to it, And
Yeah.
I got to watch so much Magic. I got to yap all weekend with 400 of my closest friends. No, well, almost 1,000 now. Thank you, all of you, for coming out here. I mean, I think I kind of broke it, honestly.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, Dom. Dom, I'm gonna need to buy some cards from Face to Face, and then we're gonna need to meet up in person so I don't get tariffed. I'm out. I got some needs, and you can get your cards from face2face.com as well. They have everything you're gonna need from Magic the Gathering and accessories. Check them out as they are the sponsor of this stream, making this all happen for you, bringing you paper competitive Magic. We love Face to Face. I'm trying to figure out the lockdown. Sorry, not the lockdown, the stock up thing. I'm trying to figure out how, like, the thought process. And I think we want Voice of Victory for the beatdowns. Like, I think we're hoping Ray has a bunch of interactive cards because we have 2 Voice of Victories in our deck, right? And this could have been the 2 stock ups. So I think we want the games to play out where like Voice comes down. It's a little hard to answer. It applies a lot of pressure and like maybe does 5-ish damage or whatever, and sets up the stage for Overlords or Beza to kind of finish off Ray. I can't say that's the plan. I can't say that's a plan. In fact, I'll tell you it's a plan I wouldn't do, but I think that's the logic that makes a lot of sense. For the most sense to me. What is Linden doing? Oh, I think Linden's saying, I think one of your card sleeves split when I was cutting your deck. Please check. Happens all the time. I think it doesn't happen all the time, though, Dom. Paper Magic coverage. And I love it. Looks like we're good.
So it's that weird sensation. We haven't done the camera scoping around the room, but when you're late in a tournament and the convention center is being torn down around you,
Mhm.
it feels like a ghost town. The artists booths are gone, vendors are gone, no one else is playing in their tournaments because those are all over.
Mhm.
Half of your friends have left already, but it's just you at the point where the tournament matters most, right? Just more lonely than you've ever been in one sense.
Mhm. It is a weird experience the first time too, because you also, like, hear everything, right? Like, you're in this big open hall with, like, 15 people now. Alright, double check how I sideboarded. And it's like, "Alright, I did initiate protocol 1-1 combo."
Now, this does open up a whole range of funny outcomes, including playing a control game and then just drawing a random omniscience at some point. Uh, but we'll discard that to something; it'll be fine.
I was really hoping we were gonna bend the omniscience. I'm not gonna lie, I was gonna lose it. Alright, draw for turn, Subverge. Pass it back. Ray, do you have Corey Steelcutter? Hello. Down to 19. Unfortunately, losing now. Down a life, but up a cutter. Soul Partition in hand here for Linden. Could use that to just remove this Corey Steelcutter probably for a lot of turns. It does up the cost by 2. Soul Partition, sick card. Ends up being a 1 of a lot. Kind of versatile. Love those kind of cards.
Yeah, it's interestingly a card that I know when it released, you saw it a lot of regional variation in where it was played. So Japanese tournaments, for example, they love Soul Partition. Just in fair decks, unfair decks, just white decks in general. Big believers in that card, and that took a while to go transatlantic. And even now, you start to see it in some of these combo decks and so on, but it's not seen as just a generically good card the way that it is elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Meringues, Omen mode. We did not high roll the 1 of Omniscience. We're going to discard a land and then shuffle our deck. Dom, in my only Ghost Vacuum win condition deck that we've been talking about all weekend, I think we're going to have a couple of Omen creatures in case I do play the mirror like you were talking about. That way I don't deck.
Okay, but then you have other win conditions. You just lied.
Oh, you're right. All right, I'll sideboard one of them for the mirror, for the grindy matchups.
Even that's like a little illegal, I think, but who am I to judge?
Yeah, that's right. Who are you to judge? As Fail Passage comes down and we pass the turn.
So this has been
Right?
a delightfully strange game so far.
Yeah, this is not what we've seen from any of our times watching this matchup. And I think this is probably the matchup we've watched the most this weekend. This is our 5th or 6th time. I don't know what's happening here. Linden seems to think that card is messed up. I don't know.
Sleeve issue, maybe?
Yeah, maybe it's like nicked or something. Oh, we've dropped all the sleeves.
Oh no.
Linden,
Disaster.
I will never forgive you for
Well,
this.
well, now also Ray's hand is perilously close to the edge of the table, so
I,
those could fall off too.
oh my god.
I do like it when there's a judge call and just a disembodied hand reach screen and grab something.
Yeah, leave it. Yes. Don't. Let's keep playing Magic. Yeah, I love it. I'll deal with that when I get my trophy. Whether it's first or second, I don't know yet. But that's future me's problem. I, I think Ray just has wear and tear from playing in the tournament for the last 22 rounds. These players were deck checked by judges. Sometimes like sleeves do have like nicks and knacks or whatever, but there's lots of normal reasons for that to occur. Core Steel Cutter cast.
Or scutter, if you will.
Dom, did you read the dissertation in the Twitch chat about Corey Steele?
I did. I feel educated.
I don't understand if that's being honest or trying to troll me. So I need the rest of Twitch chat to teach me. I'm always down to learn.
Yeah, really short-sighted on the part of whoever named this card to do it in an ambiguous way, given that it's going to be a format-defining staple in everywhere for years to come.
Yeah,
A copy editor's worst nightmare.
it's true. Cavern of Souls, naming dragon, I guess.
Yeah. So nothing has really happened yet. So what do you conclude must be in really either player's hand from the other side at this point?
Ray just has to have a bunch of spell pierces and flood maws and things like that. Because if there was cantrips, we would have played them, right? And our Corey Steelcutter would have gone off. We would have tried to make land drops. So it just has to be all interactive cards. Meanwhile, from Linden's side, it's probably all interactive cards because Ray hasn't done anything.
Right. And this meringue, Mason, I feel like we called this. It's so big.
It is right. I think round one of the tournament we talked about how meringue is very large. 6/7 just kills you very quickly, and then basically every time it's been involved in the feature match area, one of the games has been more or less decided by cast meringue, and then we talk about how big it is for a bit.
I mean, no, we kind of went off with that. I think it's been validated more and more over time.
I think we cooked, as the kids say. Shivan Reef's gonna deal 1 down to 17. And then into the Flood Maw, it's going to bounce the meringue. That's going to give us
Okay.
a monk token, which is going to attack for 2. And I think Ray's hoping that we meringue again so we can do a very similar thing because we have a This Town in hand. Looks like a Hearth Elemental. We just need a chance to play our spells. Cavern of Souls, again, naming Dragon.
Well,
Maybe
new one, I assume naming Avatar or one of Overlord's types.
Sure.
Going that direction.
All right, we played the meringue.
So this is basically like we spent a Floodmore to deal 2 effectively, and I guess make Linden commit all mana again, which suddenly is not nothing.
Yeah, and also we have Hearth Elemental in hand, so we need to get that going theoretically. So we Lotus pedaled towards it. Corey Steelcutter into I think Stock Up. Is that what's happening here?
So this is the
that's
4 mana cutter. So this is funny. So Ray gets to cast the partitioned Corey Steelcutter, which costs 4, and then follow up with the Floodmore. And then if the same sequence happens again, well, now the cutter costs 2 mana from the hand, and so Ray can have a double cutter turn. But Surge of Salvation protecting Meringue from the Floodmore. So now Ray is actually on a 2-turn clock.
Yeah, and then Linden's just going to temporarily lock down the cutter just to make sure that he doesn't get killed out of nowhere. Obviously, that could still maybe happen, but it's a lot more likely to happen with 2 cutters compared to 1. All right, there's the land for Ray. Ray's hand's all gas. Here comes Corey Steelcutter.
There's a This Town ain't big enough in there?
There is a This Town. It's at the front of the hand. Here's a Ral. That's a good one for making a bunch of bodies. Now, Meringue is a flying creature, so it can kill Ral or just attack Ray.
Yeah, I imagine with the way the game's going, if Ray gets some value from Ral and then takes a turn off attacking Ray to attack Ray.
I attack here for 2. Then I'm curious, are we going to take down the Ral and just try to get more spells to set up lethal in the next turn, or maybe find a Flood Maw for the Meringue, or make an Otter? My gut is to make an Otter, but I could see the argument to tick down and get a few cards.
Yeah, I mean, part of it depends on what you think Linden will do. So will Linden go for the 2-turn lethal with the Meringue?
Yeah.
Or, and if so, well, what do you want to happen given that? Like, if Ral's going to be around next turn, would you rather have the Otter as another prowess attacker, and then you get to loot next turn with more information? Or, yeah, it's tricky. This is not an easy game. I think the other outcome actually is if Ray thinks they can cast several spells next turn and Rao's going to live, then you
just
cast, let's say,
put
3
it in.
spells. Yeah, Rao ticks up, and you can maybe just draw even more cards.
Yeah, I think this is the play that leads to Ray winning the most. Well, I guess sorry, I guess I should argue like you could argue the Otter does too, but this sets up like Ray both winning and finding an answer to the meringue, right? Like maybe an Into the Flood Maw or something that bounces it. Because you're right, if Linden attacks Ray and does that, then the Ral will be in play. We'll cast a couple spells, which will trigger our Quarry Cutter before it got scroll shifting on underneath the temporary lockdown. And then we minus again, draw some more cards, and maybe find the lethal spell or the bounce spell. Now, as a case where we scroll shifted this temporary lockdown, so everything's back underneath it here. And Linden has got a couple interactive spells in this meringue, and so the question becomes: do I attack Ray and potentially get, into the Flood Mob many times, or do I kill this Ral and I'm gonna attack Ray
Okay.
to 5 and say call, as Overlord of the Mistmores is in hand, and we're hard casting it. This is many
Oh,
attackers.
really?
Yeah, and this makes some sense too, along the lines of like I'm gonna attack you, right? I have another thing that's lethal, making cards like Into the Flood Maw a little less effective.
Yeah.
And
Now, notably, Overlord itself does not have flying, so if Ray can stick some odders in front of that, it can buy a turn, maybe. Assuming we can deal with the meringue, which is not trivial in its own right.
Thundertrap Trainer to start the turn. Will the Otters come clutch here? Storm Chaser Talent, the card closest to Ray. Can't make out the rest. All right. In the tank, trying to figure out how are we going to get out of this. Storm Chaser's Talent makes an Otter. We have this town ain't big enough in hand. Gonna play the Spire Bluff. Gonna tick up Ral, make another Otter. Notably, Ray is at 5, so the 2 Moths are not lethal on their own. Dom, if anyone can this town and Otter their way to victory from here, it's Ray. Three mana temporary lockdown. Ray does have this town ain't big enough, but the meringue is presenting a big problem in this regard, as it's a flying creature. We need to answer. All right, we're gonna this town Overlord of the Mistmores and Storm Chaser's Talent.
Interesting.
Into the Flood Maw must be the card to answer meringue then. With the idea being the moss will go away, the Overlord will go back to your hand. I'll bounce your dragon. Scroll shift the Overlord. I don't think that does anything when it comes to this turn lethaling.
Yeah. So this will come back in and make more moths, but those will get sped up. And then
Oh, I think Linden maybe thought if we scroll shifted, this town was going to get
okay,
fizzled.
you thought it was the whole thing. Yeah. So
Y-
lockdown comes in, bunch of stuff will go underneath, including the new moths. And so yeah, if Ray can bounce the meringue, then they get to live a turn.
Yeah,
Yep,
and the
the
Ral's
meringue goes
gaining
back. So actually now, right, because the Overlord will not be a lethal attacker because Ray can make a bunch of blockers there. And
exactly.
Linden can undo some of Ray's work with a meringue, certainly, and that will be lethal next turn. But Ray has a little bit of a reprieve now, so let's see what they can do with it.
Yeah, I mean, Ray can also tick down just to draw more cards with the Ral and just keep the gas flowing. It's definitely not easy, but I'm starting to see that silver lining that leads to Ray winning. You know, that sort of metaphorical path to victory. As here comes the Ral minus. Great way to convert any extra lands we might have or situationally dead cards into something. Of note, Linden does still have the one Azorius. I'm sorry, the one Omniscience and the one Abuelos in deck. So
And so Linden's hand is the meringue, and then the Afar Dispersal, is that right?
correct.
Okay.
So if we draw the Omniscience,
So Ray could play talent, level it, pick up either Floodmore or this town to, keep the bouncy castle going.
yeah, and something Ray's done many a time. Level up my Storm Chasers talent. Pick up this town ain't big enough. Arena players around the world crying for this town to be banned in this moment. As we pick it up and we pass the turn back to Linden.
The issue is fundamentally things aren't changing, right? Like Ray has to jump through just about managing to do it, but then where's the progress coming from?
Yeah. Oh, well, it looks like Linden maybe. Okay, so in response to the fetch, we're gonna bounce talent and Overlord, gain a loyalty here.
Yeah.
I agree. Like we need to actually weirdly make land drops a little bit during this time so that we can then set up the lethal attackers later.
Right. And so Linden can recast one of the two, whichever he pleases. Can even
Yeah.
bounce and recast a lockdown potentially.
Could
That would
also,
be
if you
cool.
draw land, meringue and impin the Overlord.
Yes, although I think that's risky because then there's no obligation to deal with the overlord itself every right, at least for
Sure.
4 turns.
Yeah, but the meringue, I don't know, the meringue's eating it's weird. Either way, I think we drew Abuelos. Meringue does clear up all the threats on board. Rao would go back to hand, which has been a big part of this game. Remember when we all thought we were supposed to just attack Ray? And we were like, well, we could kill Rao. The Rao has been drawing so many cards.
Is there a target for the Abrettos in there?
I don't know. I
Because
don't.
there's almost poetic if there isn't, right?
Yeah.
Let's try and find one, shall we?
Yeah. Archaeologist. Meringue. Overlord. Another one. The archaeologist.
And a whiff
D.
on Philology, I see.
Yeah. Ambitious D20 use of the Philology here. Here comes the meringue bouncing the two otters. And we've
I'm
been
trying to
talking about.
think, looking
Sorry.
at Ray's list. So no actual flyers in sight, and obviously no life gain in our Izadek. So yeah, if Meringue ever attacks, the game is over. So everything that happens from this point forward, any comeback, involves bouncing this Meringue every single turn. which is very strange to think about.
All right. In the upkeep. Bounce these two. Yeah, Linden. Gonna draw for turn. We can do the same turn we did last turn, Dom. Also, it looks like, and this is my mistake, not actually Abuelo's in hand, but scroll. I think that's scroll shift. I kind of like just playing the white overlord here. Maybe that's wrong, but you have this temporary lockdown in hand. That can answer most of the RAL tokens and other otters that get made. You get to attack this turn for, well, I guess the otter is a 2/2, so it doesn't really get anywhere, but another archaeologist. There's the omniscience.
Is that really going to be this game?
Yeah, you see a little counting. We're going to take the gate instead.
Okay, so now if there isn't Bredos, you're going to Bredos with free negate, and then is there some meringue loop available here? I mean, not
You maybe
directly,
draw
but
into
there's a
one.
lot of value available.
Yeah. I think I was wrong, Dom, on the Abuelos, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the Overlord, excuse me, the temporary lockdown tricked me as Overlord the Mist Morse is getting cast. Linden's like, I'm going to play this. I think he's thinking about impending so that he can have negate up. But yeah, I mean, you're seeing the go for the dice. I think I just like hard casting it though. You have a lot of ways to incidentally clear blockers. Seeing Ray shake their head, sort of, how did I end up in this crazy game? Looks like there's another Storm Chaser's talent in hand for Ray. Started things off with a Ral. That's gonna let's get some extra loyalty from all the spells we're gonna cast. Minusing, looking for some answers to the problems at hand. So the loop has been broken up. Other Ral hits the graveyard. Mountain for turn. Stock up. And congratulations to Linden. Ray is going to concede. That is your champion from Montreal. Incredibly well played. What a bizarre game, too, to be the final match going on there. Dom, what do you have to say?
We watched a lot of games of Magic this weekend. That was the last one. It was a very weird one, but it was one of the best ones, I'm sure, that Linden Koot has ever played, because he now is a regional champion. He is going to Worlds. He's going to the Pro Tour, walking away with a nice check, a very large, comically large raindrop trophy, and and the pride of all of British Columbia.